From the Fox News Podcast Network, I'm Dana Perino, and everything will be okay. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Everything Will Be Okay. This week, I'm joined by my friend and Fox News colleague whose work ethic and endurance in and out of the wrestling ring go unmatched. Tyrus is a man of many titles, from father to professional wrestler to podcast host to panelist on Gutfeld. And now he's adding best-selling author to his championship belt. In his memoir, Just Tyrus, he gives us a raw, honest, and heartfelt glimpse into his life. There's a lot of fun in this book. There's a lot of heart and life in this book. I absolutely loved it. I read it in one day. I can't recommend it highly enough. He shares that even in the midst of joy, heartbreak, and unexpected detours and disappointments, he's still just Tyrus. And Tyrus is pretty great. Tyrus, you're joining the Everything Will Be Okay podcast. I'm excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here and just a scotch nervous.
Why are you nervous?
It's Dana Perino.
What's the most nervous event you've ever done? Like, what's the most nervous you've ever been?
Oh, that's such a good question. What is the most nervous thing I've ever done? Oh, man.
I'll tell you mine.
Probably my first wrestling match where I was walking out in spandex in front of thousands of people.
That would do it for me too.
I was pretty. It like all day was like I'm fine, and then like, oh boy, like my heart was pounding and like I was thinking about running the other direction. It was crazy.
So mine, oh my gosh, I think I might have been wearing this exact dress. I did for charity. I did Celebrity Jeopardy.
Oh, you're
and this
smart,
was
though.
like 2011, 2012, and it was in Washington, D.C. Now, remember, at that point, I had been the White House press secretary. I had answered questions in front of the world. I had done the most nervous I have ever been in my life is doing Jeopardy. I sweated through the dress. I was standing on a box that was like probably like a 4 or 5 inch box, and I was in 4-inch heels. And I was standing next to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he's tall.
So
tall.
There was that intimidation, but also just to have your intellect and your knowledge on full display, or lack thereof, on full display for everyone to see. That was bad for me.
But you killed it.
No, I was leading going into the first commercial break, and then I fell apart in the second half.
Yeah, it happens.
But that's the most nervous I've ever been.
I was... Dusty Rhodes, rest his soul, didn't help me. Like, he was literally like the Funkasaurus character. Was not in my wheelhouse. Like, I was not a dancer. I never danced when I was even in the clubs. When I was a bouncer, I nodded my head. And I had been trained to be this killer. You know, for a year and a half, I was getting ready. I wrote this whole thing, and it was called The House of Pain, and had these matches on Superstars, and people were terrified of me, and I was doing my thing that I was trained to do. And I was... Then I made a joke in the locker room, and Vince McMahon just happened to be walking by, and I heard his very distinctive laugh. He's got that ha-ha. It's like a chuckle.
Okay.
It's not evil, but if there was ever an evil laugh, it would be in the running. And I thought, oh, all right, I made the old man laugh. And Triple H, who was spearheading my TV debut and stuff, my debut, came up to me one day with his face was as white as a ghost, and he was like, hey. I was like, hey, because we're getting ready to debut next week. And he's like, did you make a joke or something in front of the boss? I said, I'm not in front of him. I think he walked by. I said, why? He goes, well, he thinks you're a pretty funny guy. I said, yeah, a lot of guys do in the locker room. It's just,
right.
Locker room stuff. He's like, oh, he thinks you're a really funny guy. I was like, well, how funny? He's like, coming out to the ring, dancing funny. And I was like, what does dancing have to do with funny? And he was like, he likes to dance. It makes him laugh. You made him laugh, so he assumes you like to dance. And I was like, what can we do? And he's like, I don't know. Give me some time. And I was like, oh no, I was having a heart attack. Like, oh no, what? And I said, can I go to Dusty Rhodes, who was my mentor, and he was like a father figure for me. And I went down in there, and I was like, what do I do? What do I do? He's trying to make me dance. And he was like, well, baby, you're being punished for my sins. And I was like, okay, well, what do you need to do? I do not want to dance. And he says, well, you're going to have to learn to dance, because if the boss wants you to dance, you got to dance. And I was like, having a you think you sweat? I was covered. And this is just me and Dusty Rhodes alone in an arena. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm not dancing. That's not who I am. And he was like, well, so who are you going to have to be?
In spandex?
It would eventually be, but on that day I was not wearing spandex in my personal time. And although I'm sure they're comfortable, but it's just not my thing. I know wrestlers in the 80s used to wear cowboy boots and spandex. Again, just not my cup of tea. So he said, give me your hand. And I said, for what? And he's like, we're going to dance. And he had the sound guy hit the lights, and he turned on moves like Jagger. And I was really getting upset. Like, I was the closest I was ever to punching somebody I cared deeply for. And he made me dance with him. And it was like 45 minutes, because I fought it with everything I had. And the only thing was like Morgan Freeman coming over, like, I wish I could say Tyrus fought the good fight. But eventually, anybody who laughs and is that much fun in what he does, so I ended up dancing with him. It took so long at the time. My son and his uncle had came to pick me up at the thing, and then my son and them were just standing there. And they come from a strong wrestling tradition family, like they break wood with their hands. And I'm dancing. So, and then it just happened. And next thing I know, they're like, you're debuting and you're going to come out as Heavy D was the name they wanted me to come out to. And Dana, I was hyperventilating in the corner, like, think of something. You got to get out of this. You got to get out of this. There's 20,000 people and you're going to come out as Heavy D. Like, Heavy G just died. Like, Heavy D just died. I was going to be Heavy G. That's how traumatic this was. I'm like, I'm not doing this. Plus, I'm dieting. This isn't fair. And the announcer walked up to me, and they never, just for some reason, said, hey, what am I calling you tonight? And I just was like, Funkasaurus. And he was like, what? That was approved? Yeah. I'm from Planet Funk. I'm the Funkasaurus. And he was like, all right. So he went out there and he did it. That wasn't so bad. And I went out and did the thing. But I mean, my heart.
Well, I'm glad you told the story, because I wanted to have you on the podcast to talk about your book, Just Tyrus.
And I do talk about it in my book.
That story is in the book. I was honored to read an early copy of the book before it was even in print. I got the electronic copy in January. It was a weekend. I read it in a day. I couldn't put it down. I loved it. I kept sending you messages that this line's great. Oh, this is so good. Oh, wow, I can't believe this happened. Oh my gosh, your book is so good. And I finished it, and I have been raving about it ever since. And I encourage anyone who listens to this podcast or sees Tyrus on any of his multiple shows or listen to his podcast, you think you know Tyrus, and then you read this book, and it is so moving and honest and action-packed. It is funny. It is also astounding to look back, to know you now as a successful guy, and to be able to go back and understand all the things that you went through to get you to this point. And I also know you as a dad, and a little Georgie, who she kind of likes me, I think.
Yeah, just a scotch. Just a scotch.
You were on before, and we talked about what it's like to raise daughters in this time, and how you can raise them with confidence and to have the grace and dignity and the belief that they can do anything that they want to do. But let's go back to the beginning. I don't know how far back I want to go, and you don't have to give away the whole story, but a couple of things stuck out to me. One is your leaving of Massachusetts. And another one, I thought the scene of being on your bike in California with the sax catching snakes.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting trajectory for me, to like where you went and then where you were, so very vulnerable, and it's a very vulnerable situation, to a place of love, to then being uprooted again, but yet figuring out a way to survive and to be considered a leader, that somebody that people could turn to and like, wow, that guy's cool. That guy's big. That guy's smart. That guy's brave.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the kind words, and it is very humbling, and it's hard not to get emotional. I really appreciate, you Excuse me. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
You know, everyone has a story. You know, when you tell yours, you think, you know, you don't think it never. You sometimes don't think that your life has as much meaning as you would like it to be. And one of the scary things about it is when you put it on paper and you present it to people, it exposes you. And then when someone validates you, especially someone like you, who I respect so much, some of my own weaknesses stand out because not having those kind of people in my life, there was never an attaboy or a good job. It was just, they had other stuff going on.
That was just survival for you.
For the full podcast, go to foxnewspodcast.com.